I promised you a tour of the propagation facility, so let's have a look around. And it all starts on these misting benches here. You see those white uprights on the left-hand side of the screen. Those are misters, and they go off for about 3 to 4 seconds every 10 to 15 minutes or so, depending on the weather. And down here, I want to show you these cuttings. Pull one out here and just lay it across and see if I can focus on that. You can see that it is completely unrooted. And that's the way they come in, just cleanly cut from the stem of the plant, held in these conditions until they root. Now, how long does that take? Well, it depends on the conditions. So the mist is great. We're doing these under natural light. Over on the other side of the house, we run them under grow lights, so those ones go a little bit faster. Also, they're on heated benches. So anywhere in the range from a few days to about a couple weeks after going under this mist, you'll see that these plants have little roots or a little callus across the bottom where they're pulling moisture up themselves from the soil. At that point, we remove them from the mist. And I'll show you, there's another bench over here. Same thing, that's a misting bench. So all of these are unrooted cuttings. And all of these are started for the 2021 season, at which point after they root, we move them onto these benches over here, which are still watered by overhead irrigation, but they are not misted to the same frequency as the ones on the mist bench. Now, this whole greenhouse is a controlled environment. We try to keep it in the range of 25 to maybe 27 degrees Celsius. That's nearing 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's the temperature. The light levels, well, as I say, natural light on this side with grow lights on the other side to encourage rooting development. We maintain the temperature either through the bench heat, so that we have a little boiler. It's not a big one, but it's fine for controlling the benches in this size of greenhouse. And we have a little boiler, and then we have backup heaters, and that's what you see going at the far end there. At the top of the greenhouse, that's a Modine heater that just pumps in a little more temperature on a cooler day like this one. It also has circulating fans at the top there. I've turned those ones off just temporarily because they're background noise on the video, but normally we would have the circulating fans. The other thing we do to control conditions in here is we either string shade or use a shade on the outer poly of the greenhouse during the summer. And at the far end there, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, at the far end of the greenhouse, sort of dark colored wall you see there, that's a vent pad. And what that does is it has moisture in it. It has an opening to the outside air outside there. And on the other side of the greenhouse, directly across from us, you'll see a giant fan. In the summer, when it starts to get warm in here, those fans will turn on, that vent pad panel will open, and it will pull moist air through the greenhouse, acting as evaporative cooling in the greenhouse to try to bring the temperature down and the humidity up, and it creates kind of a gentle airflow across the greenhouse, which then creates, you know, really good conditions for rooting. So there are a couple things about this greenhouse that are kind of interesting or special to me. One, of course, is that it's the company I work for. So I take a special interest in what comes through here. Second of all is that I'm a grower of perennials, a gardener, and substantially this greenhouse here, if you live in Western Canada and you've grown perennials in your garden, there's a very good chance that some of the perennials in your garden started their lives on these benches, and that I had a hand in growing them at least in the last 10 years or so. So it's a small greenhouse, it's not huge. By industry standards, let's say. It might be huge for home standards, but by industry standards, it's not huge. But we pump a lot of plants through here. Here's another misting bench. This one doesn't do it through those uprights, but does through mists like that. And if I stand here long enough, I'll probably get hit by some. Oh, there's the mist going on the other bench right now. And it's not big by industry standards, but because we are able to root plants so quickly on these benches, graduate them onto these benches to grow on with some temperature. You see these ones here have grown up quite nicely and are probably ready for a bit of a trim or a haircut pretty soon, just to get them to branch again from the base. And then from there, once they're at that stage and we've given them that trim, we move them on to another house, a cooler house for hardening off. So now that I've mentioned all of that, the other cool thing I like about this greenhouse is that the propagators here are very, very experienced and they love to experiment. So Marcel, who's the propagation manager, and Jesse, who's been working in this propagation department for I think around 35 years now, they play around. They're always experimenting with something. So I'll give you an example. This one here is a plant that we got last fall. And sorry, I'm going to give you a good look at the tag here. Last fall, we found one really bad looking condition plant of this in the garden center. It's a lavender cotton, or Santolina virens. And what we did is we just put it in Jessie's hand and say, go at it, go to it. And what she did is she's created now 18 mother plants that we can use here. And by the time we get into either later this spring or into the summer, we may be able to turn this into a full crop of plants, which I think is the most exciting thing on earth. You find a cool plant in the garden center, you take some cuttings, if you're permitted to do so. In this case, it's not a patented variety, and then you end up with a crop that you can sell. I'm going to show you some other cool stuff. Just bear with me, I have to move some benches to get you there. So I'm always finding cool things that either Marcel has put in here or Jessie has started on her own. This one here is a plant called Manfreda maculosa. I love that those dots are not, they're not actually a disease or a problem, it's just a polka dotted plant, which is kind of cool. So that's a new one to me. These are some more tropicals that we just started. This is Monstera deliciosa, I believe from tissue culture. And over here we have a philodendron. This is Philodendron Birkin. It's quite young yet, but I like the leaves. It looks like it has kind of a stippled pattern on that leaf, so kind of cool. I want to show you over here. There's a Sansevieria that they've rooted, and this one here is an interesting plant. It doesn't look so impressive yet, but you can see how it zigzags. The stems zigzag on that. It's a kind of a euphorbia. It actually has a different name, but they call it devil's backbone. And it sort of zigzags back and forth. I'll show you, maybe you can see better on this one, how it has that sort of zigzag pattern on the stems. Very cool, like that. And again, just a stock plant we came up with in a different garden center that we thought that would be neat. Let's make a crop out of it. This is a kind of an aloe. We don't get too many interesting aloes up here in Canada because there's CITES restrictions in moving aloes, but we came across some stock plants. These ones were propagated by pups. So we separated pups from the base of the mother plant and ended up with all sorts of aloes here, including another one over here. This is aloe hedgehog. That's kind of more spiny than that. I wanted to show you something very cool here. So I'm gonna get a good view on this. And these are a kind of a jasmine. It's a Star of India jasmine. And I don't know how Jessie figured to do this. It wouldn't have made sense to me, but she just took leaves off the plant and stuck them in the tray under our good rooting conditions. And suddenly, if you pull up on them, you can see that they've rooted down to the bottom of the plug. So from a leaf, and there are some plants that do leaf cuttings, it's just, you kind of have to know which ones. And I guess Jessie either knew that or she had an intuition that it would, and so you end up with these leaves that callus across the base of the leaf and create those roots. But where does it go from there? That's the question. Well, here's where it goes. I'm gonna get you a close-up here, but you can see at the base of another one of these, she's pulled it out, it's gone from callusing at the bottom and rooting, and now you can see a new shoot coming up. So this will turn into another Star of India jasmine, and that's a woody plant. It's like a tree, or a small tree for warmer climates. So that's kind of neat. Back to the unlit side of the greenhouse, and we are traditionally a grower of perennials. That's the majority of what we've been growing here for years. But obviously, nothing stays the same in the horticulture industry. You always want to try new things. Here's a big crop of Tratisantia. That's a kind of a neat stripy leaf on a Tratisantia there. And this is some of the stuff that we're diversifying into. We've done a ton with tropicals, we've done a ton with succulents, and it's really just about staying agile and growing what the market demands. And that's what we're doing here. So we still have our business in perennials. We're still doing quite well with it. But, and that's what these all are, is starting for our next season. But that being said, you never stand still, otherwise you may become irrelevant. I guess I'll finish up the tour here looking at some stock plants, and you'll find that around this greenhouse. It's an organized greenhouse when it comes to the crops, but the stock plants, we cram those in every corner to get the condition good. Of all the plants that we found that we're interested in, that one is a Society Garlic over there. We don't find that too readily in Canada. And anything we find that we want to keep in good condition, to take cuttings off of it, we put into sort of nooks and crannies of this greenhouse. There is the mother plant of that devil's backbone we talked about. But anything we find that is cool and interesting and we'd like to try, we will stick it over into sections of the greenhouse and hold it as a mother plant. And then Jesse, when time allows, will go and pluck away at it and see what is the best method to propagate it. All right, thanks for coming with me on the tour of this propagation facility. You may have noticed as I did this that I didn't mention the name of the business that I'm working at here. That's not because of any reluctance on my part to associate myself with this business. It's really just because the ownership is actually changing the name of this business, and they're in the midst of doing that. So that's not my particular cat to let out of this particular bag, so I'm going to leave that privilege to the ownership to announce the new name of the business. However, if you did enjoy this style of video where we're looking at the growing facilities, there are a lot more growing facilities that we could explore here, and I'd be happy to do so, and maybe I'll do that in conjunction with the release of the name of the company, the new name of the company, and I can introduce you to all of the growing facilities together. Let me know in the comments of the video if that's something you'd be interested in. And once again, thank you so much for watching.